So welcome back for those who have been here before. Welcome back to the Workforce Excellence webinar series by Mediacent Interactive, powered by Payroll Master. So for those who haven't been here, first of all, good morning, good evening, good night from wherever you're joining us from. For those who it's their first time joining us in this session, the Workforce Excellence series is a webinar that is aimed at making organizations understand how workforce data across payroll, attendance, leave, overtime, recruitment, performance, and employee records, how they can be manipulated into making business decisions. So this webinar will demonstrate how organizations can move beyond basic reporting and convert workforce data into clear, actionable executive intelligence. So in our previous session, we spoke about visibility and how to get a handle on attendance, complex shifts, and runaway overtime across different locations. Knowing what is happening across your workforce is just step one. Knowing about it is where businesses now and market leaders begin to win. So in this next session, which is the fourth edition of the series, we are bridging the gap between raw workforce data and high impact business decisions, turning real-time intelligence into strategic productivity. If you're ready to stop letting workforce insights sit dormant in dashboards and start using them to protect and grow your bottom line, then you're in the right place. This is a discussion that you simply cannot miss. So I guess we can dive straight into it. So today we are going to peel back the curtains a little bit to show you the exact systems that you can use to manage your workforce and to turn that visibility and that data into actionable intelligence. So this webinar should not feel like a software demonstration alone. It should position you to be able to manage your businesses and show you how we can use this tool for decision making in your organization. For today, we will be joined by our technical product lead from Mediacent Interactive, who will take us through a demonstration and explain how workforce information flows from Payroll Master to the different systems and into the different dashboards, the executive dashboards that we'll be using to manage the visibility. So we can jump straight into it. Maybe I can invite him to give a brief introduction for himself, and then he can take us through how the workforce can be consolidated into a single executive view and viewed by the different executive members. Karibu sana, Michael.
Thank you, Stefano. My name is Mike Ondieki, and I am the technical product lead for Payroll Master Africa. Today, I'll be demonstrating how Payroll Master gives leaders a clear, trusted view of their workforce, from organizational structure and employee readiness to payroll outcomes. Our demo company for today is Acacia Digital Services, a growing organization with 55 employees across 8 operating functions. The central idea is simple. Workforce excellence depends on having accurate people data, clear accountability, consistent compensation structures, and actionable visibility. And so with that, I'd go ahead and share my screen. There we go. We'll be loading with Acacia's test account, and we should be in any moment now. So Payroll Master opens with an executive summary of the organization. we can immediately see the workforce size, the employment status, the department coverage, payroll activity, and even recent operational events. This gives leadership a quick health check without having to assemble information from spreadsheets or separate systems. The dashboard also connects workforce information to payroll outcomes. Leaders can move from headcount to organizational structure, to approved payroll runs to total workforce cost. So with that, let's talk about the workforce visibility. And so under employees, under statistics. So here we can see, this is the workforce visibility dashboard. It turns employee records into management level insight. Our current workforce has 54 employees. This includes active employees, employees on leave, and employees in probation, while separating former employees from operational headcount. So employee self-services, self-adoption is currently at 96%. 52 employees have linked accounts through which they can access their profiles, compensation, payslips, leave, and other employee services. This metric is useful because digital adoption is part of workforce readiness. Here we have 22 people managers with an average of 2.4 direct reports. This would help leadership assess whether management responsibilities are distributed effectively or whether teams are becoming too broad, too fragmented, or overly dependent on individual managers. And the other bit would now be the data completeness, where we have organizational data completeness at 100%. Every current employee has a department, a position, a grade, and a work location. That is important because dashboards are only as reliable as the underlying records. And so with that out of the way, this is just the graphics that we can see with the different departments, how many people have adopted the new system based on your current workforce, and also the trajectory over the past months from inception or system adoption to current date. And so next we can examine how the workforce is distributed. Yes, this is just everything that we have on right now, with technology and product being the largest function, followed by service delivery, sales and partnerships, and customer success. As leaders, leadership can use this to view or compare workforce allocation with strategic priorities. For example, a technology-led business should expect meaningful investment in product development while still maintaining adequate customer operational and compliance capacity. So we even see with the workforce locations that we have here, it's distributed across Nairobi headquarters, Mombasa, Kisumu, or even a hybrid and remote arrangements. This gives immediate visibility into geographic concentration, office capacity, and regional service coverage. That being said, the summary of this would be going over the career architecture and I guess workforce compensation, whereby we have employees who are distributed across. I don't know if you can just scroll further down right here. So here we can see employees who are distributed across 7 career grades from associate level all the way through to executive leadership. This gives the organization a consistent foundation for job seniority, compensation bands, progression, and promotion decisions. With the tenure view that we have over here, this shows workforce experience based on hire dates. Over time, this helps identify retention patterns, workforce maturity, institutional knowledge, and areas where onboarding or succession planning may need attention. And so if you're to scroll further down here, we can see an employment mix chart. distinguishing between permanent, contract, casual, interns, and task-based workers whenever those arrangements are used. Sadly for this, we haven't filled out all the details. A lot of this test data is just as it stands, but with the gender view is intentionally transparent about data quality. I know in this demo the gender is currently not specified, so we just be going over to management effectiveness, which would be this card right here. So workforce excellence also requires clear accountability. 53 of the 54 current employees have an assigned manager. The one employee without a manager is the CEO, which in our case is appropriate for this reporting structure. We can also see that the largest team contains 9 direct reports. This helps HR identify managers who may need additional support or teams that may require another leadership layer. Now heading over to the employee self-service. So in this case, let's just head over here. In this case, the dashboard is not a disconnected reporting layer. Every metric traces back to governed employee records. The employee directory shows identity, the department, the employment status, the hire date, and the employment type. This traceability lets managers move from an organizational trend to the underlying people records without maintaining a separate reporting spreadsheet. Like case in point, if you're to open this, you just see an employee's or a staff's information. So let's just move on to the departments, and we can view the org chart. Payroll Master models the organization formally rather than treating departments as text labels, for lack of a better word. In our case, Acacia Digital Services has an executive office, which has 7 functional departments that we can see below. Each department has a code, cost center, a manager, and a place in the reporting hierarchy. So if you have to see all departments, there we go. This structure supports headcount reporting, cost allocation, approvals, payroll reporting, and accountability. And now we head over into the positions, grades, and pay scales. So let's start with positions. Positions define the work of the organization needs. With the grades, these would define the levels of responsibility and seniority. And with the pay scales, these define the compensation progression within those grades that I alluded to earlier. The existing salaries are retained and mapped into appropriate roles and ranges. So this just demonstrates how Payroll Master can introduce structure without rewriting historical payroll results. The other bit that I guess I would show this is being able to sign in as an employee. So bear with me as we just pick a random employee as it stands from the team members. Let's go with Peter Gitau then. Great. As you can see, so employees receive a focused self-service experience and they cannot access administrative workforce information. So this reduces their routine HR inquiries while preserving role-based privacy. And so as you can see, they have no access to any of their other staff members, only modules that are privy to them. And so with that, let's just go back to the admin portal. So the same governed workforce information feeds payroll, right, from employee identity, to employee status, to compensation assignments, payroll components, all that. So what the workflow would look like is a HR would board an employee records. Then we have organizational assignments for them. Then compensation configuration, which should be under salary assignments. Past that, we'll calculate their payroll. And then once the payroll calculation is done, we go for approval, and then payment and reporting, and then exclusive visibility through their own portal. So the flow for this, the concise flow for this is just, this continuity is important. Leadership is not looking at manually reconstructed dashboards. The insights originate from the operational records used to run the whole workforce. To close out on this, I'd say our Payroll Master brings together these three, for lack of a better, dimensions of workforce excellence. And the first one being structure, where every employee has a clear organizational home, role, the grade, location, and manager. The second bit being enablement. Employees have a secure self-service access to information they need. You just invite a user and they only have the information that's privy to them. And the third would put it down to visibility. The leaders and executives can understand headcount, workforce distribution, management coverage, data quality, and payroll outcomes from a single system. The result of this is a workforce operation that's easier to govern, explain, and better equipped to support business decisions. And so that my closing argument would be Payroll Master runs payroll from a monthly transaction into a trusted workforce intelligence platform. With that, I'd hand it back to Stefano.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was quite intuitive and quite interesting to see how technology can come into to aid in workforce visibility. You actually were on track with answering one of the first questions I wanted us to probably start our discussion on. If you have any questions, you can always drop them down into the Q&A session so that we can pick it up from there. But Michael, sorry, I wanted to understand, when executives, you had started alluding to some of the things that probably executives want to see. Maybe you can shed a bit more light in when discussing this. When executives talk about workforce visibility, what information are they able to see? What would they want to see? Maybe you can look at it maybe from different angles: HR, payroll, attendance, finance, and from an operations perspective. You can just touch on what actually they would be able to see from the Payroll Master system.
Yeah, thank you for that, Stefano. So I'll keep it very brief. The talking points for this, they'll just be with the dashboards that we do have on Payroll Master, it offers a single source of workforce and payroll information, right? This covers bits such as the current headcount and employee status, the payroll status and the recent payroll runs, the operational accountability through recent activity and audit logs. And the last one would be role appropriate access to sensitive information based on the hierarchy and the roles different staff hold throughout the company. I hope that answers it.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It answers it quite well. Maybe also to tie into a conversation we were having in the previous session where we were talking about the different levels of visibility that we can get through interacting with some of these softwares. Maybe you could highlight, how does Payroll Master then integrate with some of the other visibility softwares? Let's say, for example, Zoho People, that helps you mark attendance and leave balance, who's on leave, who's not, who's present, who's not, even in different African markets and African countries. how does Payroll Master enable one to be able to see the visibility in different African markets, and to help them run payroll in different locations and in different regions? You can touch on that as well.
Thank you for that. So we do have integration capabilities across various different ERPs, depending on the ERP a company would be running, be that Zoho or Microsoft Dynamics or Odoo, or even custom software. We made the provision for that through endpoints that be able to rest into this. But so not only that, we do have an attendance module that goes over various timesheets, and even if it covers people who are the casual audience. So what we do have in place is, for instance, with Zoho people, we have integration that synchronizes employee master data using configurable field mappings. This exposes attendance APIs and whereby we're able to support attendance records such as the worker, the work date, the check-in, check-out, the total unclassified hours, how we differentiate between normal rest and public holidays, and for the timesheets, if they're draft submitted, approved, or rejected, and also for the sources that capture this attendance, be it either manual, QR, biometric, or through geofencing. So for those who are looking to have custom solutions, or another ERP, how it would be able to integrate would be an ERP or a biometric system, or any middleware service can transform its attendance records and send them to Payroll Master's attendance API. Right, so you would go from the ERP to the biometric device, employee identity mapping, attendance normalization, then our endpoint itself, review and approval, casual payroll calculation, and then the payslip and the payment. That would be the very rundown version of how we achieve this.
Very, very, very nice. With all this technology, this begs the question then, why do organizations still then rely on spreadsheets if you can use all these tools and technologies to track attendance and then translate now that when you're doing payroll, so that everything now becomes easy and you have visibility of everything? In your opinion, because it seems like you have had some interactions with a few HR organizations or a few minds that, or people that run payroll, why would people then still rely on spreadsheets and manual ways of running payroll if they have such robust systems like Payroll Master? You can touch on.
I think organizations rely on spreadsheets because attendance is rarely a technology problem. It's usually a process, adoption, and integration problem. So some of the common reasons that we've found out that spreadsheets are immediately available and familiar, right? Attendance usually originates from multiple places, be it biometric devices, supervisor shifts, WhatsApp messages in even other instances, and even paper registers. So a lot of the existing HR and payroll systems may not integrate cleanly. Employee identifiers also differ across systems. Attendance rules often too vary by location, worker type, union arrangement, and shift and control. So spreadsheets do provide that flexibility, but this flexibility often comes with risks. I mean, we're talking about duplicate or missing records, formula or copy-paste errors, cases whereby we have weak audit trails, even uncontrolled edits where everyone has access to the spreadsheet itself. The opportunity for Payroll Master is not merely to replace the spreadsheet with a form. It should preserve the spreadsheet's flexibility while adding controls. So a strong workflow would be either capturing attendance through a biometric device, ERP, be it mobile capture or spreadsheet import, and then we normalize the attendance, the exception, and the validation for this, and then we push it on to manager approval, the payroll ready hours and overtime, the calculation itself. The most practical product strategy is therefore hybrid, right? So we'd have a direct API and ERP integration for mature organizations, spreadsheet imports for organizations transitioning from spreadsheets, and then mobile or web attendance entry for distributed teams. So without the provision that we have in place for bulk reviews and correction, clear validation errors by employee and date, duplicate detection, approval workflows. So it's just that gradual part that with audit history for every correction, we have that gradual path from spreadsheet import to full automation. So organizations stop using spreadsheets while the replacement is easier to correct, easier to trust, and demonstratively safer at payroll time, just not simply because it has more features.
Fantastic. Traditionally, we used to call these spreadsheets reports. Maybe you can touch on the difference. What is the difference between a HR report and one of these executive dashboards that you have just shown us? And with that, maybe you can also touch on what is the benefit of having such executive dashboards and how do they help you see things like trends and risks that are occurring in your organization. And also you can touch on how these dashboards can then enhance your intelligent decision making in your organization.
Try to keep it as detailed as possible, hoping I don't go over time. HR reports and executive dashboards use much of the same workforce data, but I know they serve different decisions. So dashboards identify where the attention is required, right? Reports explain the underlying records. Employee profiles provide individual context. If you use Payroll Master, and I guess the audit logs show who changed or approved the information. This is just some of the features that create a trusted workforce intelligence instead of isolated charts. So with dashboards, leaders can move from a high-level signal to an underlying department, employee population, transaction, approval history without exporting multiple spreadsheets, right? I don't know if I've glossed over. This is the summary of it because I know you asked the difference between the HR reports and the executive dashboard. So that was just the too long didn't listen version. I'd put it down to with HR reports, it's detailed and operational. They answer what happened or how often employee or transaction level. I think we also use reports they're usually periodic, right? But with executive dashboards, they're summarized and strategic. It usually says who needs the attention, right? Because we kind of focus on patterns, risks, and outcomes. With dashboards, they're generally used for planning and prioritization and designed for continuous monitoring. To close off, I'd just say the benefits are it helps understand organizational health quickly. We are able to identify trends before they become operational problems. We're able to compare different departments and grades and periods. You're able to prioritize interventions before something goes amiss. And we can ask better questions using trusted evidence. So to close, dashboards reduce the time between a change occurring and leadership/management recognizing it.
Okay. And HR reports and specifically the spreadsheets and the ones that you've just spoken about, they tend to be quite lengthy and quite tedious. How do then these dashboards, how do they bring all this information together? And what is the benefit of having all this information, all this summarized information, if I may call it that? How does it then help, let's say the top level executives, how does it help them to have more like a summary of the workforce intelligence that exists in their businesses? How do they then use this information to carry out their day-to-day decisions?
With the dashboards, we're able to monitor important workforce trends. Let's say we have a turnover dashboard in our case. It would show us departures, hiring, net workforce movement, and turnover rate over time. Right, so if you're having a rising turnover rate, it may indicate maybe it's compensation pressure, maybe it's management problems, maybe it's poor role design, or maybe it's an employee burnout, right? This, in a case, a dashboard like this, the rate should be segmented by department, location, grade, and reason for leaving, right? Organization-wide averages conceal a senior problem in one team. The reason you're able to do this with a dashboard over a HR report is reports just tell you what happened. They don't give insight into how you ended up there to begin with. That is just one example of a dashboard. So how dashboards improve intelligent decision making is they create a progression from data to action, right? Now it goes in the detail, which is where sadly a lot of HR does it, right? And they validate the HR reports. Then the proceed into trends, exceptions, and at some point management interpretation, and then the decision and intervention, and then the outcome. Now, for example, to go back into the early example, dashboards show over time rising in, let's say, the Department of Service Delivery. HR would review the underlying attendance report. Leadership discovers that customer demands exceed the scheduled capacity. The organization compares hiring, maybe redesigning the shift, and continued overtime. After acting, the dashboard tracks whether overtime costs and employee absences declines. The dashboard in this case does not make the decision by itself, right? It just improves decision quality by making the evidence timely and comparable and traceable. That would be my closing statement.
Okay, that is quite interesting. So that means you can have all your information in one snapshot. You can see all your details of your organization in one snapshot, whether shifts are being overrun, overtime is increasing or decreasing. So you can have all that information in one snapshot, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Absolutely.
All right. So then this begs the question, what are some of the workforce decisions that become difficult when you're not able to consolidate all this information into one dashboard? When, if I may call it a fragmented information, what are some of the decisions that have now become very, very difficult when you have to scour through different Excel sheets, different PowerPoint for you to just make a decision that would probably have taken you less time if you had a dashboard that had consolidated all that information? You can touch on these types of decisions that become difficult when you are handling fragmented data.
Some of the hardest decisions would include, obviously, depending on a department by department basis, but some of the hardest decisions could include stuff such as whether to hire, redistribute work, or authorize overtime. Where employee turnover is becoming a business risk. I mean, whether payroll costs are growing faster than headcount, which managers have unsustainable spans of control, which locations may need more capacity, which critical positions lack successes. Our employees whether employee, like in an instance, are employee loans creating affordability risks, right? Do HR interventions, are they actually incomplete or unreliable? A department may repeatedly request new hires. I mean, without a dashboard, you see leadership sees the request, but it lacks the immediate context, right? Oh, what's the head count or vacancies? What are the overtimes? What are the absence rates, right? What is the payroll cost? What is the employment mix? Could be something such as what is the manager capacity. This decision becomes opinion versus opinion, right? So if it's something such as to address turnover, right? It could be organization-wide averages hides problems in particular teams, right? If it's something to do with location, may be difficult for the leaders. It will be difficult without a dashboard because the leaders can not quickly see job post concentration. If you need to make a decision on whether to redesign teams, right? You'll be without a dashboard. How would leadership know the reporting lines and manager spans must be assembled manually? So without a dashboard, workforce information is usually fragmented. Employee spreadsheets, payroll reports, launch schedules, department lists, manager updates. Each source may be individually managed correctly, but leadership must reconcile them before making a decision. By the time the information is assembled, it may already be outdated. But with a dashboard, you have one agreed workforce picture, right? The current and historical comparisons, the trends instead of isolated totals, right? Exceptions that require attention, consistent definition of metrics, aligning records, and role-based access to sensitive information. The biggest benefit is not simply speed, it's decision confidence. They can explain what they decided with the evidence to support it and whether the results improved afterwards.
That's quite insightful, Michael. Some of these decisions are very, very timely. So maybe how often does the dashboard refresh so that it captures the real-time data that is the most current in the organization? How often does the dashboard on Payroll Master refresh itself, and how does this help the sort of decisions that you have just spoken about?
So the dashboards that we have on Payroll Master refresh in real time, since it's underlying data sources, because that's the basis that we build on the underlying data sources and refresh process, right? It's on current page load. So the dashboard request for the latest saved information when the page opens. Navigating back to the dashboard and refreshing it, you don't have to because it retrieves the updated data, right? A successful action can invalidate and reload affected data page. So it's continuously streaming dashboard where the figures update every second. And the practical freshness just depends on the source, which is, in our case, it's always currently streaming.
And in your opinion, knowing that you have interacted with a few organizations, in your opinion, what is the ideal time for you to check on the data or on your dashboards when you're handling now, for example, the visibility and you're about to run payroll? How often do you reckon you should check your dashboards just to make sure that your data is as current as you might want it to be?
That's the beauty of the Payroll Master platform. Since the data is always streamed in real time, would advise them to check as often as they can, and as they get ahead of the decisions that they need to make, so they can always be informed. It doesn't matter how late it is, be it on your laptop or your tablet or on your phone, always have access to it without any threats to operational thresholds. So in other instances where we do know we have statutory readiness, that is something that we always do from our end, so they don't have to worry about any changing compliance or regulations that get passed by different governments across all the 6 countries that we are currently serving. So it shouldn't just be about when payroll is about to run, right? Payroll readiness should be checked throughout the cycle with a stricter review before calculation and approval.
Fantastic. So I just got a word that Makenna is on the line. So Makenna, if you may, just come say hi to us, and then we can have a conversation around visibility.
Hi, Stefano. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. So nice of you to finally join us today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we were having a discussion with Michael about how difficult it is to make business decisions when the information that you have has been fragmented in different sources. So it might need you to get this information from more than one source, and this might end up either making your decision-making process more tedious, or knowing the human error involved in storing and retrieving data, it might cause you to make a very drastic error when you're making a decision about your business. So we were trying to talk around what are some of the difficult decisions, what are some of the decisions rather that become difficult when the information that you're working with is fragmented in different sources, as opposed to how Payroll Master and brings all your information onto one dashboard. You can shed some light, maybe from a HR perspective or from your own experience with the software and the systems.
Okay. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is, like you've mentioned, the first thing about fragmented data is the impact on time, or rather the impact in terms of time that it takes for you to be able to actually make a constructive decision for any business. So one of the things that all businesses have to acknowledge is that fragmented data causes businesses to be reactive instead of proactive. That's at the base of the data point. What that means is, if at any point you don't have the data by the time you need to make the decision, then your decision is already late. And in HR, the time to make the decision is not after the incident, it is before the incident, or before whatever you wanted to do happens. Across the entire employee life cycle, fragmented data is going to cost you. Think of hiring, the inability to see, say, your workforce data, the inability to understand, for example, what is your management versus workforce ratio, the inability to see the vacancies that you have, the inability to see how much that role is within the business and what can the business cost, then means you're going to make a hiring decision that is at the very core, which role for the decision or unsustainable. Um, think of something like compensation increments. That, I think, is one sore point for everybody. And the minute you're not able to comprehensively understand what is the impact of payroll to the business. I think in some of our past conversations, we have mentioned that, um, and I use HR in this case, is no longer an operational tool. It currently is a business partner. So if you're thinking of something like compensation, how do you, as a department or as a team, come up with compensation packages that are relevant for the business, or that would make sense for the business and for the teams in the business, if you do not have data that you can then substantiate? If you look at the dashboards that Mike had been sharing, the ability to understand what is the cost in a department, the ability that gives you clarity on either are increments an option. If not increment, what becomes the next best compensation package that you can give employees? Remember, increments are always the answer, because increments is a fixed cost running for a business. But if you can see that and you can have your dashboards on maybe compensation, then you can have a conversation and understand, say, how about with bonuses? For you to run a bonus structure, it's already depend on performance in this case. And subsequently, that ropes back into whatever data it is that you're looking to analyze, or decisions that you're looking to make. The element of being able to make a critical decision becomes completely crippled. So if you're looking at it, you can look at workforce planning. And this is also visible in the dashboards that Mike has shared. You can understand hiring. Who do you need to hire? Which teams do you need to populate? Imagine this in a context where you're running a group of companies across different African countries. How do you understand which promotion needs to be run? How do you understand compensation that you need to run? How do you do performance? Remember, all these different elements that I'm mentioning within the employee life cycle populate back into payroll or back into how you manage payroll for your employees. So ideally, instead of acting on real-time insights, then organizations will spend time that they need or valuable time in reconciling data. And at the end of the day, we say man is to error. So if you have not built in these dashboards, if you have not sat down to understand critical driver elements for your team, then you end up making fragmented or wrong decisions or knee-high decisions, as opposed to being able to make strategic decisions that would subsequently push the organization further. Back to you, Stefano.
Wow, that is truly great. You've had it here, guys. Time actually is money in the end. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our session here today. We have had quite some interesting conversations with Michael, showing us how the Payroll Master system allows you to manage your entire payroll management, your payroll runs in one snapshot, and how you can be able to see your organizational intelligence in one dashboard. Makenna also came in with very heavy hitters when it comes to how fast your decisions should be made, how soon should you use the data to make informed decisions before the action is actually required. That is quite fantastic. And you've had it here on the Workforce Excellence webinar series, where we bring some of the sharpest minds in the industry to allow you to navigate the challenges that you are facing in your workforce, and to help you come up with intelligent and actionable real-time decisions that will help you improve your productivity and your profitability in your organization. Thank you very much. If you want to book a session, a deeper session with us, where we can now take you through some of the more intricate ins and outs of the system, you can book a session with a link in the Q&A section. Then this webinar will also be available on our YouTube channel, that is Payroll Master Africa, where you can have now enough time to really dive deep into the conversations that we've been having here today. Catch us next time. We'll be hosting this webinar every single Wednesday. Be sure to join us. Be sure to never miss a session, because we really dive deep into active discussions that help you improve your workforce, and it help you improve your excellence in your workforce, to build up that intelligent decision making. Thank you very much, and you have yourselves a wonderful evening, and see you next time. Cheers.